Hi guys, Ronnie here and welcome to the workshop. It's been a couple of weeks since the last video, and since then we got straight in the middle of winter, and that forced me to make a couple of changes on my bike setup. So today I'm going to talk about them. Now, I never really had a dedicated winter bike before, basically because I've done most of my training indoors. But for this year I've decided to stick to the traditional training periodization regarding my annual training plan to get better results hopefully next year in terms of my fitness, and that warrants a dedicated winter bike setup because really for those long hours in the saddle you ideally do those outdoors. I have nothing against Zwift and running indoors, but this is just a better way to do it. And this is my bike setup, complete with the winter dirt on it, as you can see. So I'm going to talk you through a couple of the details. So the frame set, just as it was, it's an open up size small, at least until now. There will be some changes later on, but I can't tell you anything about that just yet. And it's equipped with a Campagnolo Super Record mechanical group set. Purely because of the reason that this is the group set I had here that I could use, because the other ones are all sold out. So it has upsides and downsides, but also I'm going to talk about those. First of all, why a gravel bike? My idea was that if I ride off-road, I ride a lot slower at the same power, so in the end I'm less cold, which works out quite well actually in practice. However, there are some drawbacks I'm going to talk about, and the reason for choosing gravel frame set, obviously it's just much more universal. It has all kinds of mounts, it has lots of tire clearance, and you can always ride an off-road bike on road, but obviously it doesn't work the other way around. So let's just go through the components as they are. So I'm using actually two different wheel sets for this bike, one for road. As you can see, those were my Head Vanquish 6s for the race season. The only thing I've changed about those is that I've installed 28mm S-Works Turbo Cotton tires instead of the 26s. Now, this isn't a super puncture-proof dedicated training tire, but it does have a lot more puncture protection than the 26. Also, the rubber goes further down the sidewalls, so it's more resistant to cuts in that area. And also the rubber compound is slightly slower but much more grippy, so that's good when you're navigating wet roads in freezing conditions. However, my original plan was to ride this bike purely off-road, and for that I've been using the Vanquish 4s. Now, this isn't a dedicated gravel wheel set, but they work just fine. They're very modern. The 40mm depth is just right for this kind of application, and they have a generous 21mm internal width. However, Head have been kind enough to hook me up with their dedicated Emporia wheel set, which I'm going to receive in Q1 next year, so I'm going to test those as well. So on these I have Zip G40 tires with Tubolite tire foam inserts, which are actually a first thing, or a first for me. I haven't tried something like this before, and I have to say it works great, because with these inside you can ride the tire even when it's completely flat with no air in it. You can still ride it home, so that enabled me to ride without the saddlebag in the off-road setup, so that's pretty neat. The tires themselves are very good in dry conditions, and most hard pack stuff really cut resistant, so no issues there. And they were great basically up around the beginning of December when it started to rain and snow a lot, and basically all the trails and dirt roads etc. turned into a swamp. And having ridden cyclocross before quite a lot, I can testify that a 40mm Gravatar is not what you want in snow and mud. They're just super slippery in those kind of conditions, so for that obviously you'd want a narrow cross tire with very aggressive tread on it. So because of this, and well, then the situation got even worse with more snow, so I had to stick to riding on the road, because off-road it was just unrideable. So then I went with this modified road setup with the tires I've mentioned here. Now this version of the bike isn't really what you would find riding during the season, but it does have some key benefits in winter conditions. So let's talk about the specific stuff that I'm using. In winter it's cold and dark most of the time, so you want a good set of lights. This is a question that I got asked on Instagram, so I'm going to go through this. For the front light, this might be actually overkill for road, but I had this, I think it's called the Nog Power Trail. It's basically a two-piece modular light. This is the light itself actually, and this is a 10,000 milliamp hour power bank, which is pretty neat, because if you carry a small cable around you can charge your other stuff in case it dies mid-ride, so that's pretty neat. But the other thing I chose it for is the 2000 lumen performance of the main light itself. This is the maximum performance mode and if you use this you can ride off-road in pitch black conditions and it's just fine. For the road obviously the lesser settings will do. There's also 1500 lumen settings, so I use those on the road. It has a pretty sturdy mount up here. Obviously it's not aero, but I don't really care about riding fast when it's cold for the aforementioned reasons of, well, not getting cold. So this is how it looks in practice. It's quite easy to put on and off, and actually the power bank is so huge in capacity that I've yet to charge this after, well, 1.5 months or so of use. Then we have the X-Lab Stealth Pocket on the top tube. Since this is a gravel bike, well, most frame sets do come with an option to have something like this installed. It's not pretty, but it's very practical, and the reason I decided to go for this is when I wear thick winter gloves, I find it almost impossible to get food out of my back pocket mid-ride, and this just makes that a lot easier. And then I have, well, actually I've torn the stitching on one of my jackets when I tried to take the food out, so this saves me from doing that. One thing that's a bit redundant is the second water bottle cage, because in cold conditions you can do with one bottle even for a 4-hour ride, so I'm probably going to remove that. Pedals, these are also a bit specific. So normally I use the Speedplay Aero pedals, the old version still, although I already got some new ones from Wahoo to test, but this is kind of a legacy model. It's pretty rare as well. It's called a Pave and it's designed for, well, Paris-Roubaix, obviously. And the good thing is that they're almost like a mountain bike pedal in terms of mud clearance. So that was pretty surprising, because when I was riding on these muddy conditions I could still clip in with my cleat packed full of mud. And the pedal body, unlike other Speedplay models, is full steel, so it's not the lightest thing around, but it's really hard wearing. Actually, I just re-greased them for the first time, so yeah, all good stuff. Then regarding the group set itself, there are definite drawbacks and benefits to having mechanical, particularly when we talk about Campagnolo. So the things I like are the tight gaps with the 12 speeds. That's very nice, always, not just in winter. Then the hood shape and the whole design of the levers, very comfortable. So it just falls good in the hands. Then you have completely separated shift levers, very distinctive. So even in thick gloves, you know what you're doing. And with mechanical, you do get the tactile feedback from the clicks. So again, you know what you're doing. So these are the good parts. The bad parts, I've always had fully integrated bikes, so this cable spaghetti here on the front is just not something that is really up to my taste. So I prefer to get rid of that with my next build. Yeah, that's just an aesthetic thing, although well, not completely, because you can't really notice this when you're not riding the bike, but because the small dirt particles from the wet road get lodged in here between the cables, they all kind of creak when you just move the bike around, so you can't really notice that when riding, but can be a bit annoying. And the other thing, when you ride off-road in wet conditions, after a couple of hours the shifting just stops working very well because of the contamination, which of course you don't get with electronic. So plus or minuses. Of course, because it's mechanical, you don't have to charge it. Cold is not very gentle on lithium-ion batteries, so vastly reduces the capacity, so might be a good thing. However, for next time I'd really prefer to be a mechanical, I think. Then for the other stuff, SX polymer saddle. This is a carryover from my road bike. I don't have that anymore, so this is the most comfortable saddle that I own. So I just stuck to this. Because of the open honeycomb construction, it's not very practical in dirty conditions. So unless you have a power washer like I do, then I don't recommend, because dirt will just get in there and stay there if you just wash it with a hose. So that's something to keep in mind. Yeah, the wheels themselves have held up extremely well. I've ridden them for thousands of kilometers without any issue, so that's all fine. And the last thing, and probably the one most asked about, are the mud guards. Now, some people last time have commented on the fact that this can't be a winter bike without mud guards, or it wasn't dry then, or sorry, it was dry then, so I didn't have them on. But this is what I use. These are the Crud Road Racer Mark IIIs, and they're pretty damn brilliant actually. They're not these traditional bulky full-on mud guards, but as you can see, you can install them and remove them pretty easily. They attach with these heavy-duty Velcro strips, which are glued to the frame and fork. Obviously, since this is a gravel bike, there's tons of clearance with the road tires, so also tons of clearance for these. So they go on just like this. And actually the only reason I don't have them on right now is because the roads looked perfectly dry when I set out from home today, and then as it turns out on other places it was wet as hell, so I ended up looking like this without the mud guards. But this is how they look installed. Obviously need to fiddle around with them a little bit to get the position correct, but they're Velcro straps allow that, and it's pretty easy to do. As I said, no more than 5 minutes to put them on and adjust them, and they give very good coverage. I've ridden them in the rain last time, and it saves your butt and legs from getting wet. Also a drivetrain. Speaking of the drivetrain, now riding in wet conditions isn't a strong suit of wax loops, particularly when it comes to protection from corrosion, but I do that anyway because I think it's still much better than having an oily mess instead of a chain. And I've actually stopped doing immersive waxing on this because I don't want to contaminate my fresh wax that I've just put into my little bowl, and I stuck purely to the Silka drip loop and cleaning the chain with their wipes, and this has worked extremely well actually. I keep a close eye on the chain wear, but after around 2000 kilometers there's less than 0.2% of length increase, so that's just nothing considering the conditions I was riding in. Sometimes it was pretty horrible on and off road, so I'm very happy with how that performs. Possibly ultimate chain loop for these kind of conditions would be Absolute Black and its graphene loop, but I currently don't have a 12-speed Campagnolo chain with that kind of treatment on, so yeah, this works remarkably well and I think I'll just stick to it. Okay, so that's pretty much all about the bike setup. If you have any questions, then let me know in the comments below. Next time we can go through the clothing and other equipment that I use if you're interested in that. And then by beginning of next year, hopefully I can show you the stuff that I will be riding on for next year. So if you want to see that, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and see you next time.